There are stories that time tries to hide, but that heaven makes sure to remember forever. And one of these stories begins with a girl with a soul so pure that she seemed to already belong to another world. Her name was Maria Goretti. Few would imagine that such a young child could impact entire generations, heal hearts, and inspire impossible forgiveness. But that's exactly what she did, not with words from a pulpit, nor with fame or riches. Maria did everything with what God values most, a surrendered heart and a faithful love, even in the midst of pain. Maria was born in a small rural village in Italy at the end of the 19th century. Her parents were poor, but rich in faith. Their house was humble, made of stacked stones and mud, but full of warmth. There, even without luxury, there was plenty of love, prayer, and hard work. Maria's father, a dedicated man, worked as a carpenter and in the neighboring fields, doing a little bit of everything to support his wife and children. Her mother, a strong and devout woman, took care of the house and their 6 children with a dedication that only a mother of many can know. From a very young age, Maria showed signs that she was different. While other children played with dolls or ran through the fields, she preferred to help her mother with chores and learn prayers. Her greatest joy was listening to stories of the saints, especially the Virgin Mary, whom she said she wanted to be close friends with. At 10 years old, she was already helping in the kitchen, taking care of her younger siblings, and was known in the village for her unusual kindness and a look that conveyed peace. Even amidst poverty, her heart was joyful, and her words were always ready to comfort and encourage anyone who was tired. But Maria's life changed drastically when her father got sick. A devastating type of fever, carried by mosquitoes, took his life in just a few days. The pain of that loss was immense. Her mother, now a widow with 6 children, had to take over the work in the fields, and Maria, even though she was so young, became the lady of the house, taking on jobs that required maturity and strength. She cooked, washed clothes, sewed, and took care of her siblings as if they were her own children. She did all of this with sweetness, without grumbling, without complaining. What kept Maria going? It was her faith. She talked to God like she was talking to a friend. Every day before doing any chores, she prayed on her knees in front of a small statue of Jesus on the cross. That's where she found her strength. It was during this time in Maria's life that a young man named Alessandro Serenelli showed up in the village. He was a few years older than Maria and lived with his father in one of the houses on the same farm where the Goretti family worked. At first, he seemed like just another neighbor. He worked occasionally, was quiet, but soon began to show interest in Maria. At first, it was just harsh words, comments that bothered her. Maria would walk away, not quite understanding what he wanted. But over time, Alessandro became more insistent, with intense stares, bad intentions, and a presence that made Maria uneasy. Even so, Maria remained silent. She knew her mother already carried a heavy burden, and she didn't want to cause her any more worries. But inside, she prayed. She prayed a lot. She asked for strength, protection, and courage, and she said to herself, "My body is God's temple and my soul belongs to Him." On a stuffy afternoon, while everyone was working in the fields, Maria was home alone, taking care of her little brother. That's when Alessandro came in. The door creaked slowly as Alessandro walked in. Maria, who was washing a pot in the corner of the kitchen, turned around, surprised. He was looking at her in a way that wasn't just uncomfortable anymore. It was threatening. His intense stare, his sweaty hands gripping an iron tool he used for sharpening farm equipment. Maria stepped back, and Alessandro closed the door behind him. He said straight out what he wanted. For her to give in, to give herself to him, that no one needed to know. "No, this is a sin. You will go to hell if you do this." That seemed to light a fire in him. Feeling rejected, humiliated, and overcome with lust, Alessandro lunged forward. Maria tried to run. She screamed. She fought back as hard as she could. But he was stronger, and when he realized he wouldn't get what he wanted, he lost control. With the iron rod in his hands, he hit Maria over and over. The blood stained the stone floor, dripping down to the feet of the image of Jesus on the wall. Maria's little brother, scared, cried in a corner while she lay on the ground, wounded, struggling to breathe but alive. After the attack, Alessandro ran away and locked himself in his house. Maria, even though she was hurt, dragged herself to the front door. With shaky hands, she managed to unlock the wooden latch and call for help before she fainted. Her cries alerted neighbors and family members. When her mother arrived, she found her daughter covered in blood, weak but still awake. Despair swept over the village. Quickly, they put together a makeshift cart and took Maria to a hospital in the nearest city. The trip was long and painful. Every bump of the cart was an indescribable agony. At the hospital, the doctors were shocked by the girl's condition. She had lost a lot of blood. She had deep cuts that reached vital organs. She had a high fever and signs of widespread infection. Even so, Maria remained peaceful. When a nun came closer to clean her, she whispered, "It's all right, Jesus suffered too. I want to offer this to him." The doctors hesitated to give anesthesia for the emergency surgery, fearing she wouldn't make it. They operated anyway. Maria endured each stitch, each cut, without complaint. Her hands clutched a rosary. Her lips repeated prayers. A priest was called to administer the Eucharist and hear her confession. At the end, he asked, "Maria, do you forgive the person who did this to you?" "Yes, I forgive him, and I want him to be with me in heaven." The room fell silent. Even the doctors, who weren't religious, felt they were witnessing something bigger than themselves. This wasn't just a little girl dying. It was a soul choosing love over pain. Meanwhile, Alessandro was arrested. At the trial, he tried to justify himself, saying that Maria had provoked him, that everything was a misunderstanding. But no one believed him. He was sentenced to more than 2 decades in prison. He entered the cell as a bitter, angry man, blaming the victim for his own downfall. He refused to hear anything about repentance. He felt hatred. But something inside him began to change when, on a dark night, he dreamt of Maria. She was in a field of flowers, quietly picking lilies. With each flower she picked, she gave one to him. 14 flowers, the exact number of wounds he had caused her. When he woke up, he was in tears. My friends, if this story touched you, if something in your heart was moved, I want to ask you. Comment below, "I choose to forgive." This action can be the beginning of someone's liberation. And if you haven't subscribed to the Sacred Stories Bible channel yet, now is the time. Here, each video is a bridge between your story and God's heart. Click the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of forgiveness. After the dream about Maria Goretti, Alessandro Serenelli spent days in absolute silence. The image of the girl with the lilies wouldn't leave his mind. It was as if each flower burned him inside, as if the sweetness of that gesture confronted him with everything he had become. For the first time, he didn't blame anyone else. And for the first time, he felt the need for change. From then on, he started asking for a Bible. He read with difficulty, but he persisted. He began to pray, even though he didn't really know what to say. And when he finally had the courage to seek out the prison chaplain, he cried before the altar. He asked God for forgiveness. He confessed his crime sincerely, and he began on that cold prison floor the path to conversion. Meanwhile, Maria Goretti's name began to spread through the villages and towns like a sweet scent of holiness. People talked about the girl who forgave her attacker, who died defending her purity, who faced the pain with divine dignity. And miracles began to happen. A man whose leg was supposed to be amputated after a work accident was completely healed after his wife placed a small picture of Maria between the bandages on his wound. A boy who suffered from paralysis in his legs began to walk after praying and asking for the young martyr's help. Maria's reputation for holiness grew not just because of the miracles, but because of the depth of what she represented. In a time when evil seemed to be winning, a young girl showed that love always has the final say, that purity is still possible, that forgiveness isn't weakness, that dying with God is winning at life. Years later, Alessandro left prison. Not because he served his whole sentence, but because the justice system itself saw how much he had changed. He left a different man, a broken man, yes, but rebuilt by grace. And the first thing he did when he got out was to look for Maria's mother, Assunta. He knocked on the door of the small stone house where Maria grew up. When her mother opened the door, time seemed to stop. Alessandro, with tears in his eyes, simply said, "Ma'am, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need to ask for forgiveness. If my daughter forgave you, who am I to not forgive you?" And he hugged her. That night, they both went to Mass together. They sat side by side. They received the Eucharist. The altar seemed brighter than usual. Some say Maria was there. I believe so. Not with the eyes the world sees, but with the invisible presence that only saints have. From that day on, Alessandro lived discreetly in a monastery as a gardener. He cared for the flowers with the same tenderness with which, one day, Maria gave him lilies in a dream. He lived in penance, silence, and prayer. He died peacefully, years later, with a photograph of Maria in his hand. Today, Maria Goretti is officially recognized as a saint by the Catholic Church. She is the patron saint of youth, purity, victims of violence, and all those who struggle to forgive. Her body rests in a crystal reliquary, but her spirit walks among us, strengthening the weak, restoring the fallen, rekindling the faith of those who thought they had no chance left. And you, my brother, my sister, what did this story tell your heart? Have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? Have you carried resentment for too long? Or maybe you're blaming yourself for mistakes you've made and can't forgive yourself? Write in the comments. Share your story. Sometimes, someone's healing begins with your testimony. If you haven't subscribed to the Sacred Stories Bible channel yet, now is the time. Here, every video is made with prayer, with truth, and with a sincere desire to touch your soul. If this video made you think, if it moved you, if it brought you light, give it a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. May Saint Maria Goretti inspire you to choose forgiveness. Because heaven isn't made of perfect people. It's made of people who chose to love when it hurt the most.